All right, Shalom Israel.
Yes, sir.
Peace and practical knowledge, which started out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under commanding General YAHANNA. We had some technical difficulties, right, due to the weather. The internet get knocked off, right, but it came back a while ago, so we would run the class for about an hour due to the COVID-19 and the state of emergency with the curfew, right? We got to knock it off early so brothers could get to reach home in time, right? But again, these circumstances beyond our control, right? We're going to get into tonight's class, right? As I see the title, Negroes are not Africans, because it is being said that we are Africans, right? Most people still believe till this date that Negroes in Trinidad or scattered in the Americas as Africans, when that is not so, right? Before we delve into the class, of course, make sure you subscribe to all the I.S.U.P.K channels, I.S.U.P.K Trinidad channels. Look for us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Clubhouse, TikTok, on all the social media sites, so that you can stay up to date with what's going on in Trinidad when it comes to learning the history of who you are, your culture, you understand, of you being a true Jew, you being the Hebrew Israelites of the Bible, right? We have classes every day of the week. Monday we have the history class. On Tuesdays we have brotherhood class. Wednesdays we have the law class, right? Thursdays we stream from headquarters from time to time, right? We have the Lashaman Kodash, which is the Hebrew class on Fridays. Saturdays the Sabbath service, and Sundays you could come get your scriptures breakdown on Sundays, right? So we're going to get into tonight's class again for a little hour because of the time, you understand, and the curfew that it have in place, right? We'll do our part 1 now. Next week, Lord willing, we're going to do the second part, right? So we're going to get into tonight's class. Again, it has been said that Black people are Africans. As we just see, we came out from the oppressor's holiday, right, which is the emancipation, so-called making it believe that Black people are Africans and slavery was abolished. Now we're free, we emancipated, or whatsoever the case might be. You understand? But these things was just set up to keep you asleep, keep you away, and not knowing who you are as a people. You understand? I just want to read something. Of course, this comes from the National Library, right? So I'm just going to read something. I'm going to read some now. It's not hold 1 minute, right? Because of course, as I was just saying a while ago, we just had Emancipation Day, right? A few days back. It's in Emancipation Day, right? The history of the New World since Columbus rediscovered it is one of conquest, pillage, exploitation, and forced migration of a people for more than 3 centuries. Millions of people were forcibly transported from their homes in Africa. And of course, most people, again, when they see, when they read things like these and they see people were forced from their home, thinking that you have association with the African, not fully knowing your history, not fully knowing your culture, and not fully knowing who you are, right? Taken from their homes from Africa across the perilous Atlantic Ocean to the New World, where they were forced to labor on sugar plantations for the rest of their lives. This enslavement of a people continued until events in Europe changed the fortunes of the West Indian and North American colonies. Humanitarians started questioning the validity of slavery. There was competition from beet sugar producers in Europe, and the advent of the Industrial Revolution spawned the rise of the new group of influential men in British Parliament who believed that slavery was no longer economically viable. So the saying, right, that slavery now was no longer economic viable, meaning that, all right, we could get rid of that, right? But this is what happened, right? Again, you're seeing whether it's in Europe and the advent of the Industrial Revolution spawned, of course, industry started kicking out. So you're coming off from being the common sugar worker, you understand, the common cotton picker, to get more into the industrial phase of it, right? In 1833, Thomas Buxton presented the Emancipation Bill in Parliament. The act was passed and came into effect on August 1st, 1834. On that day, thousands of slaves in the British West Indies became free men. and women. 150 years later, on August 1st, 1985, the government of Trinidad and Tobago declared Emancipation Day a national holiday to commemorate the abolition of slavery, right? So now we come and we get into that, and we thinking because the bill passed, and Trinidad say, well, all right, this is the abolition of slavery, we thinking, well, we're free, we're not slaves anymore, and so forth and so forth. But what is most important for us to realize, with slavery comes your history. You understand? With slavery comes plenty things for you to know, and there are questions that we don't ask ourselves as Black people. You understand? There are many questions we don't ask ourselves. You understand? For example, we don't ask that, like since we're in time at school, when we're in this public schooling system, right? When they're talking about slavery or they're teaching us slavery in schools, you never see where they go beyond slavery. You understand? Where they go beyond Africa. It just always starts with slavery and with Africa. The 1600s, slavery, Christopher Columbus, slave ships, and Africa. But what really happened before that? You understand? And if you dive more into it, you're going to understand why in our schooling system and in our library system as well too, because not all libraries have the how I put it, the books for you to go and read to understand what really happened. You understand? But when you get to find out before slavery, you're going to understand that what is most important to the so-called Black man, Hispanic man, and Native Indian man is you knowing your identity. You understand? You knowing your identity. So when you start to go back before slavery, many things are going to come into question because you're going to realize, you understand, whereby the so-called Black man and the so-called African, the so-called Negro, the so-called African is two totally separate people. You understand? Not because we may look similar or not because the white man took us from in Africa means that we are Africans. You understand? There are a series of things that have happened. Why we were picked up from Africa. You understand? Questions we don't ask ourselves again. You understand? Before we go into that, right? Again, I'm just saying, not because the so-called white man pulled out from Africa means he's an Africa. You understand? He's African. But of course, when we mix with these other nations, when we mix with these other races, you understand? We mix with white people, you understand? They have us thinking that we're African, and also to the things that they push on us. You understand? Make us believe that we're African. They don't push your culture. They don't push your history. You understand? Because that was something most important to the so-called Black man that he should have known who he is. That is the most important thing on the face of the earth right now, that the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian man know who he is. You understand? But when we don't know who he is, of course, we're going to mix in all these other nations when the Most High separated us from being in these nations. You understand? Separated us, gave us our own land, gave us our own culture, our own history, everything. The other nations were separated as well too. You understand? But again, integration, mixing, things they push on us, we just accept it. You understand? You understand? And when we get into the culture of these other nations, you could see where we give it flavor. You understand? So when we go into the culture of these other nations and we flavor it, we start to move, function, how they're doing, for example, like smoke weed or in the dance cultures or in the African dance, you will see whereby the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian man, they're giving that extra flavor. So now other people looking on could watch it and say, hey boy, yeah boy, I read it. You understand? Because the way how we move and the way how we take their culture and adapt it, the way we dress, the way we may sing or whatsoever the case might be, in their culture, other Negroes looking on will say, wait boy, yeah boy, we African people great. When it's not we African people great. You understand? Is that you don't know who you are and you in African culture thinking we African people great. You understand? For example, like if you ask yourself, all right, is African, what country or what nation you come from in Africa? Because of course in Africa it have over 40 different countries. You understand? With many different dialects. So you're asking yourself, hey, which part in Africa I really come from? What language I used to speak? You understand? These are the things that we have to ask. These are the things that you have to ask yourself. Then you have to ask yourself, who tell you is an African? Where we learn being an African from? We learn being African from the so-called white man. Again, by the things he push on us. You understand? It have no native African that came to teach us our culture. You understand? If we were so-called African, we took that from the white man and gobble it up, we eat it up and run with it. Just take every other philosophy and doctrine that he push, just like we take his holidays, you understand, and run with it. The Easter, the Christmas, the Valentine's Day. We take this from the white man, we run with it. Who taught us that we as Africans, again, the so-called white man? You understand? And again, black people now, we want to associate with Africa, but then when you look at it, you're seeing that Africans don't want to associate with us. They don't want to be African American. You understand? They stay in their native home and their culture. You understand? And they're dealing with their history, but it's only the so-called black man trying to run back into the way of the Africans when that was not part of what you was. You understand? Again, the Bible is the law book and the history book of the so-called black man, Hispanic man, and Native Indian man. And when you go inside there, backed up with other historical books and archaeology, you're going to see whether the black man is not an African. You understand? Again, give me the book of give me the book of Exodus chapter 11 and verse 7, Baba Kusha. We're going to start with that scripture. You understand? Again, if you look at the Africans, you don't see the Africans in no way trying to help. They know that they are not our people. You don't see them trying to help us. You don't see them trying to do business with us in no big way. You're not seeing them trying to help no communities, no sports fan, no sports athlete. You understand? Nothing. They just they come across on these parts on the Americas, take what they want and go back to their people with it. You understand? Go ahead when you have it up, Sasha.
Exodus chapter 11 verse 7. But against any of the children of Israel.
Against who?
But against any of the children of Israel.
Right, so against any of the children of Israel, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, go ahead.
Not a dog move his tongue.
Not a what?
Not a dog move his tongue.
You understand? Shall not a dog move his tongue. Go ahead.
Against man or beast, that you may know how that the Lord do not put a difference between.
You understand? The Lord do it. The Lord doth put a difference between who?
Between the Egyptians and the Israel.
The Lord put a difference between the Egyptians and the so-called Negro. The Israelites of this Bible, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. The Lord put a difference between us. Between the Egyptians, meaning the Africans, you understand? And the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, the Lord's chosen people. If we didn't know that by now, you understand? The Lord did put a difference between us. Again, right? We may ask questions we might ask ourselves is, through slavery, after slavery done, since slavery abolished, everything done, how come no native African didn't come back for their people? You understand? If Africa is so great, you ain't see no army from the Congo or from all these places coming back to get so-called Africans who are sold into slavery here. You understand what I'm saying? You're not seeing that. So that also too should let you know, so-called black man, Hispanic man, and Native Indian man, that these native Africans, they know exactly who you are. And when you go inside the Bible, when you go into the records, they know, you will see, who you are. You will see who they are, because of course, in the Bible, every nation is inside it. Every race of people is in the Bible. You understand? And then when you start doing your homework, start reading, start learning, through the men in the I.S.U.P.K and the commanding General Yahanna, you're going to see whereby you are the Lord's chosen people. You're going to see where the native Africans, you understand, they didn't take Africans and sell them in slavery. You will see whereby the native Africans sold Israelites into slavery. Who's the Israelites? The 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, the Lord's chosen people. You're going to see where the native Indians sold the Lord's chosen people, the true Jews, into slavery. You understand? They know exactly who they were selling in slavery. They know that there's a difference between us and them, but we don't know that because we're too busy caught up in all the philosophies and doctrines of all these other nations. You understand? We too busy eating up what the white man feed we and not trying to seek our own, to learn from our own. You understand? To learn from our own, to really understand who we are, what we're supposed to do, why we're in this condition. But we face and look to all these other nations to get answers. You understand? Give me the book of Zephaniah chapter 2 and verse 12, Baba Kusha. You understand? Because this is what the Lord think about these Africans. And as we go further into the class, we're going to see what the Lord requires from you to do, so-called black man, Hispanic man, and Native Indian man. Give me Zephaniah chapter 2 and verse 12, Baba Kusha.
Zephaniah chapter 2 and verse 12. You Ethiopians. You Ethiopians. Also, you shall be slain by the sword.
You Ethiopians. This is what the Most High thinks about the so-called Africans. You're going to be what?
Slain by the sword.
You're going to be slain by the sword. You understand? This is what the Lord have for you, so-called Africans. Because when you look back at the things that the native Africans did to the Lord chosen people, you're going to realize that it wasn't good. You're going to realize that they have to get recompense for what they did. Just now, hold one sec, Baba Kusha. Must I catch up with you there? I'm reading from it up again, Baba Kusha.
Zephaniah chapter 2 and verse 12. You Ethiopians also, you shall be slain by the sword.
You understand? The Ethiopians, the Africans, they're going to be slain by the sword. You understand? That's not it. So let's take it. You understand? This is what the Lord going to do these so-called Africans. Jump to Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 15, Baba Kusha. Lord says going to be Ethiopian by the sword. The Lord is not dealing with these other nations the way how He dealing with Israel. You understand? The Lord wants you to get right, so-called black man, Hispanic man, and Native Indian man. How are you going to get right? First of all, you're going to get right by knowing who He is. You understand? You're going to get right after you know who He is, to come into the I.S.U.P.K and start learning about your culture, learning about your history, learning about your people, learning about the things you're supposed to do from what you're not supposed to do. You understand? That have laws and rules that govern us. Things that you're supposed to eat from what you're not supposed to eat, or you're supposed to treat your brother, your sister. You understand? You have things you're supposed to do, for example, like not commit abortion, putting tattoos on your skin, markings on your skin, like what these Africans do. You understand? Go ahead when you have it, Officer Sasha.
Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 17. All nations before him as nothing.
All nations before him as what?
Nothing.
You understand? So all nations before the Most High is like nothing. Most High don't study them. Go ahead.
They are counted to him less than nothing.
They are counted less as what?
Less than nothing.
These other nations are counted to the Most High less as nothing. These other nations, you understand? It's counted less as nothing. Go ahead.
And vanity.
And what?
And vanity.
Is your name? Which one you read?
Isaiah chapter 40, 40 and verse 17.
No, 15, Baba Krishna.
Isaiah
40 and 15. Yeah. Yeah, you just jump back up to 15.
Oh, all right. No sense.
Yeah. I understand.
Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 15. Behold, the nation are the drop of a bucket.
You understand? These other nations, the Lord letting you know that these other nations is just like the drop from a bucket. You understand? So imagine you have a bucket of water and a little drop fall out. The Lord letting you know these other races, that is how we look at them, as nothing, as just drop from a bucket. Go ahead.
And are counted as the small dust of the balance. Behold, He taketh up the
eyes.
The eyes? Yeah. The eyes of a very little thing.
You understand? So the Lord letting you know that these other nations, you understand, these other races, He count them as nothing. They're like the drop from a bucket. He don't study them. You understand? He don't put in place for the Ethiopians. The Ethiopians are going to be killed by my sword. But what you need to know, so-called black man, Hispanic man, Native Indian man, is who you is. What most I have in store for you. What you need to do. You understand what I'm showing you? Give me Jeremiah chapter 14 and verse 2, Baba Kusha. Because it is very, very important, so-called black man, that you know who you are. You understand? It's not no filthy African. You are the Lord's chosen people. You understand? The Most High say separate you amongst, or separate you from all other nations. Go ahead and have it, Officer.
Jeremiah chapter 14 and verse 2. Judah mourneth.
Do what?
Judah mourneth.
The Lord letting you know that the so-called Jews, they are the ones in mourning. You understand? And how you know that the so-called Jew is in mourning? Because of course, when you look at how our people is being destroyed, you understand? By gun violence, by drugs. You understand? The amount of abortions they're taking. We is the people that is in mourning, not the so-called Jews, which we're going to get in the next part of the class that is in Jerusalem. We are the ones that are in mourning. Go ahead.
And the gates thereof language.
You understand? And our gates, of course, you know, our gate is used for protection, to keep things in and to keep things out. You understand? So when you say the gates are language, let them know that the people that are supposed to be the leaders, our leaders that are supposed to be looking over us or being our protection, it language, it is destroyed. They are destroyed. You understand? Because when you look at it, our people, they don't care about us. You understand? They don't care about us, and they don't even care about what the things they have done for black people. What they have done for black people, absolutely nothing. You understand? Go ahead.
They are black onto the ground.
They are what?
They are black onto the ground.
You understand? Letting you know that the so-called Jews, they are black onto the ground. Again, same thing like you were saying from before. Not because the Jews, not because we came from Africa means that we are Africa, that we are African. You understand? They say that we are black onto the ground. Go ahead.
And the cry of Jerusalem is going up.
Is it right? You understand? Letting you know the so-called Jews, they are black. So yes, the so-called Jews, we are black. We are a dark-skinned people. You understand? We are that dark-skinned people. What we're going to get into now, let's make sure I have it here. You go read it from me, Sasha. You want me to read it?
Anything you want?
Right, you read it from my Baba Kusha. You understand? We're going to go into the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, right? Because of course, you see the Jews are black onto the ground, different shades are black. You understand? When they dig up the earth, they're going to get different shades of brown. So the Lord, like, you know, this is how the Jews are. You understand? I think in the Hebrew they say is Gadala Aratazak. You understand? Dark onto the earth. That is how the Jews are. So that letting you know so-called black man, Hispanic man, and Native Indian man, that the so-called white man in Israel now who's saying he's a Jew, he's not a Jew. The Lord letting you know the Jews is a dark-skinned people. You understand? Now this is not to be confused with you being an African or you coming from Africa. You understand? Because when you look at certain things that the church will push, even them and all will say that is African. You understand? But when you go into historical sources, archaeology and stuff like that, they're going to see whereby the historians and the biblical scholars, they're saying something different from what is being taught us. You understand? Go ahead when you have it over Sasha, you can read from Ham, because of course, they teach us that Ham is the father of all black people, when that is not so. You understand? Go ahead.
Ham. The Zondervan Bible Compact Dictionary.
Go ahead.
Ham. The youngest son of Noah.
Right, so Ham was the youngest son of Noah. Of course, Noah is the one who built the ark. Of course, when you go back earlier on in the scriptures, you're going to see that he built the ark for 120 years before the flood came. You understand? And before the flood came, got up the unclean animals, the 2 by pairs are unclean. I think it's 7 by unclean or something like that, or maybe have it back to front. You understand? And he had a son, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. They went in the ark too. They were the only ones that survived the flood. You understand? He was warning people of the flood that is to come. Just like our brothers in the I.S.U.P.K under commanding Gen.YAHANNA, we warning people about the flood to come. You understand? When you see us out in the camp speaking, that is the ark that is being built. When you see us in classes teaching, that is the ark that's being built. You understand? When you see brothers and brothers teaching all over the I.S.U.P.K, that is the ark being built all throughout the earth. You understand? Go ahead.
Ham, the youngest son of Noah.
Right, so Ham was the youngest son of Noah. Go ahead.
born probably about 96 years before the flood.
Right? So Ham was the youngest son of Noah. Noah had 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, but he was the youngest one. He was born probably about 90, how much?
96 years before the flood.
96 years before the flood. Go ahead.
And one of the 8 persons who lived through the flood.
And he was one of the 8 persons who was there because, of course, the sons of Noah, they had their wives, and Noah was there also, right? So he was one of the 8 persons to live through the flood. You understand? To witness all that had happened. Go ahead.
He became the progenitor of the dark races.
The progenitor of the dark races, or the forefather of the dark races. And this is what is being taught us, and they stop right there. So now we're thinking that is the night. You understand? But we're going to read more and understand much more about it. Go ahead.
Not the Negro'S.
Not the who?
Not the Negro'S.
You understand? So now he became the progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negro'S. You understand? So now if Ham is not the forefather of the Negro'S, then that is something that we all need to investigate. You understand? So he's not the forefather of the Negro'S. Go ahead, Officer Sasha.
But the Egyptians.
But the what?
But the Egyptians.
But the Egyptians.
The Ethiopians.
The Ethiopians.
The Libyans.
The Libyans.
And the Canaanites.
And the Canaanites. Letting you know that Ham is the father of all these native Africans. You understand? The Egyptians, the Ethiopians, the Libyans, and the Canaanites. You understand? All African people. But he was the progenitor of the Negro'S. That letting you know so-called black man, Hispanic man, and Native man from biblical scholars, from people who study the Bible and doing history and archaeology, that you so-called black man, you is not African. And according to the Lord, you understand? According to God, you are part of the 12 lost tribes of the nation of Israel. You understand? You are part of this nation, and they have things for us to do. You might hear brothers talking about that almost every day in class, but they have things for us to do. You understand? Even for us to separate away from these other nations. We being integrated with them, we just lost. You understand? We just lost of not knowing who we are. That's something I want to show you, right? But before I share that, all right, let me show you. Let me show you one time. Right? That's something I'm going to show. Which was no surprise to me, but that just goes, this is just one thing, right? But it just goes to show how our people, we are asleep and we lost. You understand? We just read Ham, the father of the dark races, not the Negro'S. You understand? Of course, the biblical scholars, the historians, they're trying to show you, not trying to show you, but they're showing you. You understand? Where they understand that the Africans and the Negro'S are 2 different people. Right? We don't know the history, we don't know where we come from. While all these other nations, they know their history and they know where they come from. They could trace back their ancestral roots. Could we do that? No, we can't do that being taught by the so-called white man. You understand? Of course, they come into the I.S.U.P.K under commanding Gen.YAHANNA, you will be able to trace back. You understand? Right back to the tribe that you belong to. You understand? Right back to the nation that you belong to. Right? So we're just going to look at this for a little minute here. Of course, when we go in a little more into the video, you're going to know it was that was the past Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. But this just goes to show you something, right? Right, so they're calling out your name, Kamala Prasad, whatever they're saying, right?
Welcome, Kamala Prasad. They joyously recited.
Right, welcome, Kamala Prasad.
An emotional Prime Minister is escorted through a narrow green carpeted walkway to her uncle's home, anxious to meet whom karma had prescribed, linking time and history, evoking emotions, and visibly demonstrating humanness. These are priceless moments, understood best by those who encounter the deep feelings of social adventure and appreciate extended family, unaware of what to expect, yet venturing steadfastly into the past. Overwhelmed by this special homecoming, they showered her with a cascade of emotions and flowers, tokens of their appreciation and gifts. The exchanges seemed never-ending. Pictures telling their many stories of a flash in history that this village shall forever remember and cherish. On the outside, tens of thousands gathered from villages far and wide, the old and the very young, securing strategic positions to capture that closer view of a distant Jahajin, who in their minds epitomizes greatness and global prominence, a daughter who would come from the genes of their own gifted. Absorbed by the power of this reunion, she shared with this mammoth crowd deep sentiment of her heart.
When I was walking in and I saw all of you and tears came to my eyes, I could only remember the face of my grandfather, the face of my father, the face of my parents, and believe how proud they would have been if they were alive today to see me here in their land, in their village. Whatever I am today has been put into my genetic makeup and into my DNA from here in the earth.
Grateful for their tremendous embrace and welcome, she offered to her newfound kinship educational counseling so that they too could make a difference in their own lives.
If I were to leave a message here today for you, it is that you must do every single thing you can to give your children an education. Without an education, they will never be able to get a better quality of life.
Apunose Sukhad Milan. This journey in faith, driven by an inquisition to trace the origins of the being, would bring together the generations Ramlakhan Mishra left behind, willingly preparing the way for the special return. No better sight for this visiting head of government than the ominous presence of the country's national flag in a land geographically distant, yet so close to her heart. The goodbyes were as emotional as the tears of joy that welcomed her, bridging a gap that existed for over a century, narrowed by the quest to educate herself about the roots from Boxar district that were transplanted in the soils of Siparia 123 years ago. Ironically, a tree in the village named Siparia stands even today near the ancestral home.
You understand? So the honor, but back then, when she was prime minister, she was able to trace the history right back to the homeland where she come from. You understand? To among she people. And still when they listen go, they will see whereby they was talking and the saying, where she bring back things for them and all too. You understand? And going and help she people grow to get better education and so forth and so forth. That letting you know so-called black man, Hispanic man, and Native Indian man, all these other nations, because when you look back at the history of the Syrians, the Chinese, Japanese, everybody goes back home, the native Africans, and help their own. You're seeing where also by the East Indians, they go back and help their own. You understand? They know their history, they know where they come from. You understand what I'm saying? It's only we tied up into all these other nations, tied up in all the things that they're doing in their culture, in their way of life. You understand? Celebrating their customs. It's only blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. We tie up in everything and we don't know who we are. We don't know our history. We don't know where we still call ourselves Africans up to this day. You understand? While these other nations, they could trace their roots and go right back home. You understand what I'm saying? But the Lord letting him know these things happen to the so-called black man because we sin against God. You understand? We don't know ways. That is why we need to come back to the laws, commandments, and statutes of the Most High. That is why we need to get ourselves into the I.S.U.P.K under commanding General Yahanna to start learning who he is, to start getting back in history, to start understanding what law you're supposed to follow. You understand? Not the laws of the land. Start understanding what is their customs, what things your forefathers left for you to know, to see. You understand? Again, the scriptures say that the things were written aforetime were written for our learning. What things we supposed to learn? You understand? Because just like how we intertwining ourselves in the culture of all these other nations, the Africans, thinking we're Africans, you understand? We want to keep the Wali as blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. We want to integrate with the East Indians. The Lord is not about integration with these 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. With these other nations, we are a separate people. You understand? But these nations, they know how to find their way back home. But you, so-called black man, you don't know how to find your way back home. You understand? Give me the ox knows it owner, Baba Kusha, if you could find that scripture. Let me see if I could pull it for you. Isaiah chapter, no, that's not right. Yeah, Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 3. Baba Kusha. You understand? These other nations, they pretty well could find a way back home. They pretty well could find themselves among the people. So-called black man, Hispanic man, and Native Indian man. This is what you need to do. You need to know where is your home. You need to know who is your people. And this is not just a talk that just talking. The Lord wanted to know that. You understand? Give me when you have it over, Sasha.
Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 3. The ox knoweth his owner.
The what?
The ox knoweth his owner.
You understand? The Lord letting you know an ox, an ox knows who is his owner. You understand? Go ahead.
And the ass his master's crib.
And an ass, a donkey, knows his master's crib. Know who is his master. Know how to find his way back home to his master. You understand? Go ahead.
But Israel do not know.
But who?
But Israel do not know. But Israel do not know.
You understand? So-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, we don't know who's the owner. We don't know who's the master's crib. You understand? The Lord letting you know so-called black man, Hispanic man, and Native Indian man, Israel, the Israelites, the true Jews, we don't know. Go ahead.
My people do not consider.
And the Lord letting them know. His people, they're not even considering. You understand? His people, not all people. His people. Also letting you know that there's a separation between you so-called Negroes to all the other nations, all the other races. You understand? The Lord letting you know my people does not consider. You understand? Give me Zephaniah chapter 2 and verse 1, Baba Kusha. This is what we need to know, so-called black man, Hispanic man, and Native Indian man. Because when you look back again and you seeing things like this letting you know that these nations, these races, they're going to care about their own. You understand? They're going to care about their own. They're going to get all the wealth, all the riches, and go right back to their own at the end of everything. But when we get anything, we're ready to go and give it to the other nations, spend it on the other nations. You understand? Your own, just breaking it right down to even your own community. You understand? You're not even going by your own community parlor. You understand? You rather go to all these other nations. Nah, them Indian and them just treat me better, boy, or whatever the case might be. You understand? Breaking it down to the smallest denomination. Go ahead, Officer Shah, when you have it.
Zephaniah chapter 2 and verse 1. Gather yourself together.
You understand? The Lord letting you know, so-called black man, the way, same way how these other nations do gather themselves, do find their way back home, do know how to carry their wealth and their everything back to their people. The Lord letting you know, so-called black man, Hispanic man, Native Indian man, gather yourself together. You understand? It's time for you to gather yourself together. Not gather yourself with all these other nations. The Lord say gather yourself together. How are you gathering yourself together? Again, in the I.S.U.P.K. under commanding General Yahanna. Because here is where blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians is gathering right now. Here is where they're gathering in the Ark at the Most High right now. Gather yourself together. Go ahead.
Ye, gather together, O nation, not desired.
You understand? Gather yourself together, O nation, not desired. You, so-called black man, is that nation not desired. You understand? Look how they treat us. Look at the things that they push on us. Look at the things that they tell us. Right now, we in the states whereby we don't even know who he is. You think these other nations go have respect for you? Do you think the Africans going to have respect for you and you don't even know who he is? You think the East Indians going to have respect for you and you don't even know who he is? You understand? They're not going to have respect for you. The Lord tell you do what? Gather yourself together, O nation not desired. You understand? Come back to serve the Most High. Come in the I.S.U.P.K, where some form of respect will be given. You understand? Come out of the worldly things. Come back to your laws, commandments, and statutes of the Most High. You understand? I'm going to read a little piece in this because, of course, the time creeping up for the curfew. So I'm just going to read a little piece in it, but we're going to continue it in the next class, right? We're going to read from a book called the Black Image in the White Mind, right? I'm going to read from page 74, right? We're going to read from page 74, right? Yeah, so we're going to read from page 74. We're going to see two historians. They're going to say historians, but of course they're doing the next one historian and they're doing archaeology. They're doing some work on the cranial remains, right, of slaves in Egypt and slaves in America, and you're going to see what they found out, right? All right, we're going to read it from here, right? There's page 84 from the Black Image in the White Mind, right? Page 84. In the 1840s, Morton collaborated with George R. Gliddon, an Egyptologist, right? So Morton, again, who was a historian, collaborated with an Egyptologist. You understand? He was a historian in America, collaborated with an Egyptologist, right? Who provided him with mummy heads and information of the racial significance of the Egyptian tomb inscriptions. In Crania Egyptiaca, there is a book published in 1844. In the next class, we're going to go into that, right? Morton pointed out that both the cranial and archaeological evidence showed, right? So they did the cranial and archaeological evidence. So they started to study the cranial image or the skulls of both the Negroes in Egypt. You understand? Comparing it with the Negroes in America. You understand? So they started to do some homework on that side, to do some research on that, right? In Crania Egyptiaca, published in 1844, Morton pointed out that both cranial and archaeological evidence showed that the Egyptians were not Negroes. You understand? So when they did their homework, they realized that the so-called Egyptians who is in Egypt, the cranial remains, when they did the homework on the cranial remains of those in Egypt, contrasting those with in America, they started to realize that the Negroes were not Africans. You understand? Show that the Egyptians were not Negroes, letting you know that that is two totally different people. Again, we just read, you understand? Some things from before we're saying the Lord, he put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. You understand? You see what the historians to the history and archaeological work, where they're saying the Negroes and the Egyptians, the native Africans, is two different people. You understand? So we're going to go into it some more in the next class. Again, Black people, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, they are part of the 12 lost tribes of the nation of Israel. Negroes are not Africans. We are a separate people from what you see in here on this screen. We are a separate people from the native Africans in Africa. We are the Lord's chosen people. We are part of the 12 lost tribes of the nation of Israel. You understand? And because that time, we have to clip the class short, so brothers can reach home before the curfew come in effect, right? So with that, pass the class over to Police and Officer Shah. We are just doing the Lord's Prayer, right, Papa?
Security announcement via the I.S.U.P.K out of 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commander Gen.YAHANNA. New rules for brothers and sisters. When a new brother or sister comes into school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are here to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the word. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a peculiar person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to another brother or sister. There's another 6 months which a brother or sister will court each other. After the 6 month period, a brother or sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithe, which is the commandment. You can find this in Numbers chapter 18 and verse 21, Malachi chapter 3, verse 8 to 10. Means 10 to be as strong as my share. 10% of every penny and piece the Most High gives you, give to your treasury department or teacher, priest fund. Free will offering for priest, non-mandatory, whatever amount you would like to give. Upcoming holy convocation, that will be the feast of blowing of trumpets. That will be the first day of the 7th month, and that will be Monday the 6th September 2021. You can find this in Leviticus chapter 23, verse 24 to 25. Mind the accounts that watch them to check on social media such as I.S.U.P.K, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and so on for I.S.U.P.K events and material. If your brother wants to be a trooper in the school, then just type in all black, which includes black boots, like shirt, like pants, like headband, scarf. That we said, Madam, sir, pan off it down. We're going to say the Lord's Prayer in Hebrew. Abanawa, Shabbat Shemaya, Wadash, Ayah, Shamka, Yahweh, Lakwaka, Aba'a, Atazaka, Ayah, Aisha, Marataza, Kawa, Ayah, Bashemaya, Natan, Nanawa, Lakam, Kal, Yawam, Wasalakno, Wakno, Wasalakno, Wakino, Wala'a, Tabianawa, Asawan, Bal, Oshino, Mayan, Rai, Kaya, Laka, Amalakwa, Wa'ala, Zapara, Ayalumia, Man.
What you just said in English, oh Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Yahweh, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth, as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. So be it.
Sir? Let's get the teacher one quickly salute. Imagine Shabbat. Imagine Barak. Yahweh Shemir Shaibar Qatar. Sir. Let's get the sisters online one quickly salute. Imagine Shabbat. Imagine Barak. Yahweh Shemir Tan Bashimir Shai. Yadmata. Class dismissed.